They were interested in being a good neighbour at the time, and the locals were Trumpeted Residents Association, Great Shelter Parish Council and Queen Edith Community Forum. It would only involve 3 or 4 meetings a year, Sam told me, and I would be reporting back to Queen Edith Community Forum. Wow, was I naive?
So was I.
Yeah. The first 6 months were absolutely fine, with gentle discussions on constitutions and the role of councillors, whom the CBC decided eventually should be consulted separately. So Sam stood down. So here am I, left all by myself. But the quality of the CBC representation was extremely strong. We had Andy to start with. We had Mike Moore, the chair of the University's Hospital Trust, Kristen Ann Rutter, the Executive Director of CBC Limited. And it became very clear over that 6 months that we were being love-bombed for a very good reason. I even created a paper in those days in consultation with the Queen Elizabeth Forum Committee on our interpretation of CBC being a good neighbour. And that included exploring some fairly gentle themes, as they seem from here. The potential growth of the campus in Vision 2050 was actually really quite vague, and we wanted that to be explored rather further. We wanted to know how much did we want to share the campus. That's an issue, you know, that they want us on there. We're not quite sure how much they want us out here. They were offering shops, public spaces, events, facilities, including a lovely cafe actually at the core of AstraZeneca's donut and an enlarged Frank Lee Centre. So meanwhile, CBC staff, I was interested earlier on, are already using Nightingale Avenue, and that struck me as something that may be explored a little bit further in relation to the Lily Pavilion and so forth. Would they want to locate any other facilities within Queen Edith's? I think the answer probably at this stage, it seems the answer is no, but you know, at that time all of this was unclear. What networking was possible? AstraZeneca, for example, already do some excellent work with local schools, and we wondered whether there would be more with local businesses. We wondered how we could mitigate the negative effects of parking, traffic, overload of local utilities, and all those questions that I think everybody associates with a large development. So at our early meetings, we began to unpick the layers of CBC with the hospitals, Cambridge University Health Partners, the research institutions, and the commercial organisations. And just very much to echo Andy here, Andy referred to the individual components, and as I'd always suspected, despite their proximity, there had been very, very limited communication across the campus. There was widespread engagement with the community was a new concept for many, though AstraZeneca again were very much at the forefront. And after some initial caution, I think Mike Moore, the chair of the Hospitals Trust, has also opened up to a very constructive dialogue. So it was getting good and sounding good. Then last April, everything changed. Because apparently the Greater Cambridge Shared Planning had asked CBC to develop their vision for a future spatial framework. This was to be achieved through an intense master planning exercise to be carried out between last May and last September. Having been on a learning curve the equivalent of 0 to 60 in about 5.1 seconds, suddenly I moved into drag racing. Weekly meetings, piles of documents, brainstorms. It actually needed a dedicated team to do what we were being asked to do. Suddenly we were part of a consultation process involving multiple interested parties, including the landowners, who were mainly the Pemberton Trust, and Cambridgeshire County Council. The Greater Cambridge Shared Partnership, the Greater Cambridge Shared Planning, rather, with their own agenda that didn't seem to involve local councillors, and the potential alternative sites of Babraham and the Genome campuses. We also became aware of many external influences at this point. Cambridge City Council, South Cambs District Council, the GCP, Cambridgeshire County Council, Cambridge and Peterborough Combined Authority, the Department of Business Trade, who of course direct companies to the campus. And this is where we're part of a much, much bigger picture. The NHS, whose financing system is absolutely shambolic from what little we've seen of it, and of course East West Rail. All of these are impinging on what's going on over there. Although the local representatives became minnows in a field of global politics, CBC did allow us to submit this document to which Andy has referred, to GCP, alongside their submission that was eventually made last December, and we called it Where We Agree and Do Not Agree with the CBC. At this point, you might also reasonably ask, I've been picked from absolutely nowhere, what's my personal approach to the task? Put simply, I'd simply say at this stage, I'm proud to live in a city with a worldwide reputation. I recognise the international contribution that the campus can make to global health, but we live here and we expect CBC and local planners to respect and listen to us as an integral part of the planning process. That's where I come from. Much of the submission was on issues tangential to Queen Edith, and I'll run very briefly through those. First of all, expansion obviously featured strongly, and again, as Andy has told you, the local plan first proposals identified a possible area between the existing campus and Gannon's Lane. It's in the green belt, and even before we started all of this, or actually shortly after we started it, when the first proposals came out, it was clear that CBC would have to justify any encroachment into the green belt. The representatives from Trumpington and Shelford were very concerned about creeping growth that might eventually turn villages into suburbs. And to be honest, David Plank is a very forthright character, I think we could say, and I left the main thrust of those arguments to him. I think our arguments are rather more NIMBY than actual threatening encroachment onto our own local area. And I felt they had the stronger case to put. So, and to this end, I think we all want assurances that any further commercial building needs to be there and could not be co-located elsewhere. And that is something that has featured, I think, pretty well in every meeting that we have had. On the campus itself, all we asked for there was there's already key worker housing there. There's plans to increase it. We said key worker, yes, because it reduces transport. Affordable housing, no, because it can be open to anybody in any way. There is no such thing as affordable housing in Cambridge, whatever they pretend. Greater access, we were very keen on, particularly to the Frank Lee Centre for Local Residents, and there was even the possibility of the South Cambridge swimming pool mentioned. But as I said, nothing is determined at this stage. And we also looked at initially the hotel facilities were presented to us really quite commercially. We spent some time being persuaded that there was a strong need for conference facilities on site. Again, reduces transport, makes conferences better if everybody's in the same area and so forth. But we want them, if they do appear in any planning, they need to solely serve the purposes of the campus users and not to become something that is a much larger facility. Two specific points relate strongly, though, to us. First of all, the public transport, or the transport side, and I think that's being addressed, the infrastructure is being addressed through busways, Cambridge South Station, and the new transport on-site strategy that Andy has spoken of. There is also a proposal, and these are things that they come and they go with these proposals, which is one of the main reasons why I find it difficult to communicate with Sam. because by the time the proposal had come, then we already knew it was going to change, so there's not much point in telling Sam what it was, because by the time she said I don't like it, it would have been something different. That's the... but there is, I think, at some point, I think it's still in the plan that's gone through, a proposal for a possible entrance in the region of Granham's Road, which would reduce some traffic at the roundabout. And there's a clear policy to make the campus a major transport hub, not least by providing minimal extra parking. So effectively, Baberham Park and Ride will become the primary car park for the site from the perspective that I've got on it. However, this is something that's a personal issue for me. The big developments of northeast Cambridge are going to create a bottleneck at the Robin Hood Junction, and they're going to put huge pressure on Limekiln Road, which is simply not fit for purpose, and it's also not the business of CBC. So, you know, that's something that I have taken offline. You may have seen my contribution in the blog, and I'm working with another local resident, Marion Polyhonoriadis, to improve the road. We've already met with the Highways Authority and have started to put together some proposals of ways in which it might work. If you want to know more about this, it's all on the blog, and it was in actually the final version, the last newsletter in January. You'll find details of that blog, and hopefully you'll hear more of that as time goes on. The second point is basically, what is in it for us? Well, the biomedical campus is a world-class facility based on an aging NHS hospital that's incapable of delivering an effective A&E service. Why should we be prepared to accept the growth in house prices, pressures on our schools, increased pollution associated with growth, if we don't at the very least see our own facilities benefit from having a world-class hospital on the doorstep? It's obvious the landlords will be able to charge world-class rents, way above those that can be charged even a couple of miles away in Fulhall in the centre of Cambridge. It would be a financial crime if a substantial part of this premium does not find its way back into our own local hospitals. But, hold on. One of the landowners is our own local council. So they have the issue of ensuring that they maximise their own rental income. So I think it's incumbent upon our own councillors to be vigilant in ensuring that their own officers are able to widen the definition of value added to include benefits that cannot be quantified financially. So, to come to the concluding part, what worked and what didn't. I've already said I think we were put in an impossible position for communication, so I'll cut that bit. But it's been amazing how our local councils have been left largely in the dark. When the opportunity to meet CBC was offered very late in the process, all bar Sam actually declined to do so. I think that's accurate, isn't it?
As far as I know, yeah.
The process raised major issues, though, for me regarding local democracy and actually this forum in itself. Who represents us? Our councillors are supposed to, but they're in an ambiguous position with regard to planning. Since the planning committee can be asked to overrule planning decisions, it would be improper for members to be associated with lobbying their officials before they made their recommendations. Hence, councillors, I think this is the reason why councillors were excluded in the end, because they were worried by this particular thing. This left me as your only representative. Except that I'm not even that. I'm your conduit. Yes, I think of drains as well when I think about it. Logic dictates that since the forum has no members, it cannot have a representative, since they have nothing to represent. that is the logic, is it not?
Strictly speaking, I don't think it's true that the forum has no members. I think the forum doesn't campaign, and therefore that was why I used the word conduit. That's my envisaging it as a knowledge transfer mechanism rather than more than that.
Yeah, I've got about another 30 seconds. So the document, this is very heavily illustrated by the document where we do and don't agree, because we had to add a footnote to it. And it reads, use of the word we throughout this document refers to members of the Champions Residents Association and Great Shelford Parish Council. Queen Edith's Community Forum, whilst actively represented on the CVC liaison group, is not a representative body and therefore not able to adopt a formal position. That's been awkward from the start. Other areas have residents' associations which are independent of politics or forums for discussion, like the forum, but they're crucially able to represent their members in major consultations. My fellow representatives from the parish council were clearly truly representative of the council. Trumpington Residents Association, which I think we describe as pseudo-representative because it's only open to those who pay a subscription, and I just represented myself. Is there a better way? Well, a couple of years back I investigated at some depth the urban parish option, but it would need both a dedicated core of volunteers and a number of preparatory steps and no guarantee of success. And some time ago I suggested to Sam that those who joined the database of the weekly newsletter might possibly evolve into a truly representative residents association where membership could possibly be free with an optional donation. That seemed to me to be one way forward. So over to you, Sam.